I have to say, it's been enormously gratifying to get here and to see things in situ and in the flesh. And it's a huge challenge to be looking at digital files. As anybody who has done it knows, you receive all of these files, you open them up, in the process of getting carpal because I hadn't used the mouse for so many hours, but you go through it and you actually get on a certain kind of roll with it. I initially, and even before I opened any of the files, had a sense of what I liked, and I know what I like, and I tend to gravitate towards abstraction. I tend to gravitate towards drawing works on paper, painting, but usually abstraction, and even in sculpture, tends to be my orientation, and even in photography. Now, why is that? I tend to appreciate the poetic and the suggestive rather than the literal and the overt narrative. Mm-hmm. That said, when I got into the process, I quickly realized that I had to jettison that point of view, that I was going to be unable to, one, put together an installation that would do justice to that because there weren't enough works of that ilk, and also because of the quality of the work that was coming through that was more narrative, that was more realistic, representational. I had to readjust, which was easy to do. It wasn't a big deal, right? I mean, sure. I just had to kind of come to that realization. So the work that came in and what we're looking at and what we're going through now is all of the work that was the first pass for me. And all those images that in digital format looked interesting. Now we've been through several times. I've walked through all of the galleries where all of the work has been placed, and I must say the staff has been great. Works are handled with great care, put in a situation where I can see them and visualize them. And for me, it's a slow process, but it's a deliberate process. So immediately I'll look at something I saw in digital format, realize that it wasn't what I expected it to be in the flesh, and we turn it to the wall. So in general, the criteria has been very selective, and I'd like the installation to be an installation that makes everybody who's in it feel good, which means that there should be breathing space, that things shouldn't be hung very close together, that you come and you quickly understand that there's a space for each artist and there's enough wall space around it. Right. So, that said, we're in a room with some of the works that have made it into the show, and I thought it would be interesting just to comment in terms of, at this point we're trying to figure out where things might go, where they'll show best, but I think it's also worth talking about the actual things and materials. I will say, it appears to me that painting is in good stead in this installation, and it's always of interest to me. I'm doing this project with Guillermo Cuitca, who told me early on that when he started painting in the late 70s, early 80s, that he thought painting was dead. There was no place for it to go. It was a medium that was moribund and, for him, quite frustrating. But he found ways to reinvent it, and so I'm always amazed to see that painting continues to be this vital kind of medium. Everybody has their influences, and Donald Sultan comes to mind immediately with an image like this. But what I appreciate about this painter is that they're willing to experiment. And there's a certain element of abstraction. You're not quite sure what it is. The lines, to me, it kind of reminds me of Coney Island. For some bizarre reason, it looks like the cyclone in black and all of the trails. That said, it's much more abstract and suggestive, and I love the process. So I'm always interested in process. I'm interested in mistakes. I'm interested in things that aren't what they appear to be and may suggest another kind of intonation and narrative. Surrealism, love surrealism. So those works that bring to bear a number of incongruous images I like very much. Hands, fish, eyes, fruit, a smiling black face, very interesting. What does it all mean? Perhaps we don't know, but the point is it's that kind of odd meeting of different things in one place, like montage, like film, and I like that very much. And this is a nice painting. So I think we just have to find space for the paintings, really, so they have their right wall and they can really kind of expand. Works on paper. I love this idea. Someone's taken Band-Aids and has made a minimalist construction out of them. it's creative, it's got imagination, it's very simple, very patternistic, and it has the requisite obsessive quality that I really like. I like people who are a little on the obsessive side. I don't know why. I think it produces a certain kind of intensive work. Little works on paper. Size has never been an issue for me. It's not about being big. It's about being potentially intimate and small, but the idea is a kernel of an idea is completely clear and coherent, and that work on paper does that for me. A little portrait of a family. There were a number of works I remember by this painter. This one struck me, very simple, but it's touching, you know, and it's very, there's a nice emotional quality to it which grabbed me, and maybe that's the father in me too, so I would admit that bias. Now here's a painting that really blew me away. I mean, it's disturbing. It seems to have a number of parallel universes in it. There's this lone figure sitting in this completely dilapidated, surreal dreamscape that it's, I don't know, it's just a really disturbing piece, but it really grabs me, and I love the nocturnal landscape, cityscape in the background out the windows. Very intense, and just the way that the paint is bleeding down the sides. It's somewhere between Dali and David Lynch or something, you know. It's very interesting. Hitchcock as well, if you're going to be filmic about it. So we'll find a nice place for that. That deserves. Wonderful work on paper here. Brings to mind Henry Moore, Jackson Pollock, when he was drawing out of his psychoanalytic phase. There's a lot of improvisation in it, and being a jazz musician, improvisation is a big part of my music, and also the way I look at art. Those principles of allowing things to happen that you wouldn't ordinarily expect, and allowing the process to dictate a lot of how you work is very interesting to me. So this drawing has a lot of that in it, and I love the way there are other worlds built into it in the form of perspectival, you know, lunges into the background. It's very nice. How do you pronounce the gallery? Vassos?
Vassos.
Vassos. So this is a great gallery. You know, I mean, all the galleries are nice, but this is a really wonderful, light-filled, it feels ample. So paintings might be a place for this gallery. We'll see how it fleshes out. And sculpture as well. And I really appreciate this, the black sculpture here. It calls to mind Tara Donovan, who is someone that I've been looking at a lot, and the museum has been looking at, and who uses, you know, very ordinary, quotidian materials to make something that's extraordinary and different. And I like the way the sculptor has done that, and it'd be nice to have possibly one unit spilling out from a corner into the room, and we'll see how that comes together. But a lot of free associations, very biomorphic, you know, recalls some of Eva Hesse's work, some of Louise Bourgeois. I love black because it's so romantic and dark and poetic at the same time. So interesting work, and I would say, I mean, although it's hard to say at this moment which unit might work, but I kind of like the single unit for its simplicity. On the other hand, I like the way the group piece configures as a community, and Bourgeois was very interested in that quality of units and family, that the moment you bring in another unit, it becomes more of a family and less about the lone individual. So we'll figure that out, but each of them have their own little, which unit might